My name is Claire Hartwell, and I'm 24 years old. On May 11th, 2024, at exactly 10:23 in the morning, I walked across the stage at the College of Charleston Cistern Yard and received my diploma in computer science with honors. The sun was already brutal, the kind of humid Charleston heat that makes your graduation gown stick to your skin before you've even sat down. Jasmine was blooming everywhere, that thick, sweet smell that tourists love and locals barely notice anymore. 2,847 graduates sat in those white folding chairs. My parents weren't in the audience. Instead, at the exact moment I was shaking President McConnell's hand, my mother was posting photos on Facebook from Fleet Landing Restaurant, the waterfront place on Patriots Point where you can see the Ravenel Bridge and the harbor, where she crab soup costs $14 a cup, and the tourists take photos of the aircraft carrier across the water. She'd tagged my sister, Emily, in every single photo. "Celebrating our girl's big promotion," the caption said. 3 exclamation points, 47 likes before I even made it back to my seat. Emily is 26, 2 years older than me, and she'd just been promoted to assistant manager at Hendrick Honda of Charleston. Not senior manager, not general manager. Assistant manager at a car dealership off Savannah Highway. Base salary $42,000 with commission. My parents rented out a private section at Fleet Landing, invited 23 family members, and spent what I later found out was $1,847 on the celebration. I know the exact number because my Aunt Karen, who has never been able to keep a secret, told me 6 months later when everything fell apart. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to that morning, to the moment I realized they weren't coming. Before I tell you what happened next, hit like and subscribe, but only if this story genuinely resonates with you. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. I read every single one. Now, let me tell you about the phone call that changed everything. I called my mother at 10:47 a.m. from the bathroom of the Sodal Theater, still in my cap and gown, mascara starting to run in the Charleston humidity. The ceremony had ended 12 minutes earlier. Everyone around me was hugging family, taking photos, crying those happy tears that come when something you worked for finally happens. My roommate Jasmine's parents had driven up from Savannah at 6 a.m. to be there. They'd brought a dozen roses and one of those giant congratulations balloons. I'd watched her father, a mechanic who works 60-hour weeks, wipe his eyes when they called her name. My phone rang 4 times before Mom answered. I could hear restaurant noise in the background, that specific sound of silverware on plates, and conversations layered over each other. "Hello?" she said, and I could tell from her voice she was smiling. Not for me, just smiling in general, the way she does when she's having a good time. "Mom," I said. "Where are you?" "Oh, honey, we're at Fleet Landing. Emily got promoted to assistant manager. Can you believe it? We had to celebrate. This is such a big deal for her." The bathroom was silent except for someone washing their hands 2 sinks down. I watched myself in the mirror, graduation cap slightly crooked, and tried to find words that made sense. "Today is my graduation," I said. "I know, sweetheart, but we already have one success in the family." She laughed when she said it. Actually laughed, like it was a joke we both understood. "You didn't think you'd actually finish, did you? I mean, computer science? That's so hard, and you've never been the academic one?" I hung up. I didn't say anything back. I just pressed the red button and stood there in the Sodal Theater bathroom, staring at my phone like it might ring again with an apology, with her saying she was kidding, with my father's voice saying they were parking the car and running late, but they'd made it. The phone stayed silent. I walked back outside to Cistern Yard, where Spanish moss hangs from the oak trees like something out of a painting, where the Randolph Hall portico frames the kind of photos that end up in alumni magazines. Jasmine found me first. She took one look at my face and didn't ask questions. She just put her arm around my shoulders and said, "My parents brought extra roses. You want one?" I took the rose. I took photos with Jasmine and her family. I smiled for the camera and tried not to think about the fact that my parents were 12.4 miles away, across the Ravenel Bridge in Mount Pleasant, toasting my sister's assistant manager position at a car dealership while I stood alone at my college graduation. The drive from our house on Bowman Road in Mount Pleasant to the College of Charleston campus is exactly 18 minutes without traffic. They could have done both. They chose not to. Let me tell you about my family so you understand how we got here. My parents, Paul Richard and Susan Hartwell, moved to Mount Pleasant in 1996, 2 years before I was born. My father works in commercial real estate, selling office spaces and retail locations. He makes around $140,000 a year, sometimes more depending on commission. My mother hasn't worked since Emily was born. She volunteers at the Junior League, goes to book club every Tuesday, and has opinions about which families in Charleston are old money versus new money, even though we're neither. We lived in a 4-bedroom house in the Bell Hall subdivision. Not waterfront, but nice. 3 bathrooms, a 2-car garage, and a backyard with a pool that my father had installed in 2008. The mortgage was $2,400 a month. I know because I overheard my parents arguing about it once when I was in high school. That Emily had wanted to go to the College of Charleston like I eventually did. But they'd sent her to a private college prep school instead, Porter God, where tuition was $28,000 a year. I went to Wando High School, the public school, where tuition was free, and the classes had 32 kids instead of 15. When I asked why Emily got to go to Porter God, and I didn't, my mother said, "Emily has always been more social, sweetheart. She needs the connections." What she meant was that Emily was prettier, more charming, the kind of daughter who looked good in the family Christmas card photos they sent out every year. I was the one who stayed in my room reading, who got straight A's without trying, who my father introduced to his colleagues as the quiet one. Emily graduated from Porter God in 2016. My parents threw her a graduation party at our house, rented a tent for the backyard, hired a catering company, and invited 67 people. I was 16 and spent most of the party in the kitchen, refilling ice buckets and watching my mother show off Emily's acceptance letter to the College of Charleston. She'd gotten in with a 3.2 GPA and an essay about her volunteer work at the animal shelter, which she'd done exactly twice. I graduated from Wando High School in 2018 with a 4.0 GPA, a full scholarship to the College of Charleston, and zero debt. My parents gave me a card with $50 inside and took me to dinner at California Dreaming on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard. Not a party. Not a tent, not 67 people celebrating. Just the 4 of us eating fried shrimp and my father saying, "Well, Pa, at least you won't cost us tuition." The pattern was old and deep by then. It had its own rhythm, like the tides coming in and out of Charleston Harbor. When I was 14, I won the science fair at Wando. My parents didn't come to the award ceremony. That same week, Emily made the JV volleyball team at Porter God. The whole family drove to Mount Pleasant for her first game. I found out about it from a photo on the refrigerator, my mother and father in the stands wearing Porter God spirit wear. When I got my acceptance letter to the College of Charleston with a full academic scholarship, my mother looked at it for exactly 3 seconds and said, "That's nice, honey. Emily's thinking about rushing a sorority." When Emily decided to major in communications, my parents called it a smart choice. When I declared computer science, my father said, "You sure about that? That's a lot of math." But I loved it. I loved the logic of code, the way you could build something from nothing, the satisfaction of solving a problem that had seemed impossible an hour before. I spent 4 years in the library at the Addlestone building, writing algorithms at 2 a.m. while the rest of Charleston slept. I joined the Women in Tech Club. I got a summer internship at Blackbaud, the software company downtown on Meeting Street that builds donor management systems for nonprofits. I made $22 an hour and saved every penny. My parents never asked about it, not once. When I came home for Christmas my junior year and tried to tell my mother about a project I was working on, an app that would help small businesses manage inventory, she interrupted me to show me photos of Emily's new boyfriend. "He works at his father's marina," she said. "The family owns 3 of them. Can you imagine?" I could imagine. I imagined it every time I drove across the Ravenel Bridge and looked out at the harbor, at the sailboats and yachts that belong to families like the ones my mother wanted Emily to marry into. I imagined what it would be like to have parents who cared more about what you built than about who you knew. But imagination doesn't change anything. It just makes the gap between what is and what could be feel wider. Senior year, I applied to tech companies, big ones, small ones, startups in Charleston, and positions across the country. I got interviews at Google, Amazon, Microsoft. I made it to the final round at Google for their Charleston office, a relatively new expansion on Wando Park Boulevard in Mount Pleasant, parked less than 3 miles from my parents' house. The office handles cloud infrastructure support for the Southeast region. Starting salary for new graduates, $127,000, plus benefits, stock options, and a $15,000 signing bonus. I didn't tell my parents I was interviewing. I didn't tell them when I got the offer letter on April 3rd, 2024. I didn't tell them when I signed it on April 8th. I just kept going to classes, finishing my senior project, studying for finals, and planning for a graduation I thought they'd at least pretend to care about. The College of Charleston sent families information packets in March. Instructions for ceremony tickets, parking passes, where to pick up regalia, what time to arrive. I left mine on the kitchen counter when I came home for spring break. My mother moved it to make room for a vase of flowers and never mentioned it. I sent my father an email with the date and time. He replied, "Got it," and nothing else. The week before graduation, I texted them both a reminder. My mother's response was a thumbs-up emoji. I told myself they'd show up, that maybe they didn't seem excited because they were planning a surprise, or because they assumed it was understood they'd be there, or because they were busy and would make time when it mattered. I told myself a lot of things that turned out to be lies I needed to believe. May 11th, 2024. Graduation day. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. in my apartment on Ashley Avenue, a 1-bedroom place I shared with Jasmine. $1,100 a month split between us, which meant I was paying $550 plus utilities. The apartment had thin walls, Tonta kitchen with linoleum floors from 1987, and a view of the parking lot. But it was mine. I'd worked at the campus bookstore for 2 years to afford it. 20 hours a week at $12.50 an hour, shelving textbooks and helping freshmen find their required reading lists. I ironed my dress, a simple navy blue one I'd bought at Target for $32. I did my makeup carefully, the way YouTube tutorials had taught me. I drove to campus at 8:15, parked in the Wolf Street garage, and walked to the staging area where graduates were supposed to gather. The air already felt thick, that Charleston humidity that sits on your skin like a wet blanket. I kept checking my phone. No messages from my parents, no good luck, or we're on our way, or proud of you. At 9:30, we lined up alphabetically. I stood between Dylan Harris and Jessica Hendricks. Treat Dylan's grandmother had flown in from Oregon. Jessica's entire extended family, 11 people, had driven up from Georgia and were sitting in the 3rd row. I could see them from where we waited. They'd brought signs that said, "Congrats, Dr. Jessica," even though she wasn't getting a PhD, just a bachelor's degree in biology. They'd brought signs anyway. The processional started at 9:50. We walked through campus to Cistern Yard, past Randolph Hall with its white columns, past the oak trees that have been standing since before the Civil War. The announcer started calling names at 10:15. It takes a while to get through 2,847 students. I sat in my folding chair, sweating through my dress under the graduation gown, watching other people hug their families, and I kept looking at the entrance, thinking maybe I'd see them rushing in late. At 10:23, they called my name. Claire Elizabeth Hartwell, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, summa cum laude. I walked across the stage, shook President McConnell's hand, took my diploma, and heard Jasmine scream my name from somewhere in the crowd. I looked out at the audience and saw families crying, cameras flashing, people standing up and cheering. I didn't see my parents. I didn't see them because they were at Fleet Landing, 12.4 miles away, celebrating my sister's promotion to assistant manager at a car dealership. At the exact moment I was graduating summa cum laude from a program with a 42% completion rate, my mother was taking photos of my sister, holding a champagne glass and posting them on Facebook with 3 exclamation points. That bathroom phone call was the last time I spoke to either of my parents for 6 months. I didn't block their numbers. I didn't send an angry text. I didn't write them a letter explaining how much they'd hurt me. I just stopped. Stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped showing up for Sunday dinners at the house in Mount Pleasant. When my mother called the next day, I let it go to voicemail. When my father texted asking if I was okay, I didn't respond. I was done performing gratitude for scraps of attention. Those 6 months were the strangest and best time of my life. I started my job at Google on June 3rd, 2024. The Charleston office is beautiful, modern glass and steel, with a cafeteria that serves free lunch, ergonomic chairs that cost more than my first car, and a view of the marsh, where egrets wade in the morning. My first day, they gave me a laptop worth $3,200, a welcome package with a Google hoodie and notebooks, and a workstation on the 3rd floor, next to a window. My team was small, 8 people including me, working on cloud infrastructure optimization. My manager, Priya Mehta, was 34 years old, had a PhD from MIT, and treated me like an actual human being with valuable ideas. In my second week, I fixed a bug in our deployment pipeline that had been causing intermittent failures for 3 months. Priya sent an email to the entire team praising my work. It was the first time in my life I felt seen for what I could do instead of dismissed for what I wasn't. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on Huger Street downtown, walking distance from King Street and the coffee shops I'd always wanted to explore, but couldn't afford as a student. Rent was $2,100 a month, which would have been impossible on my bookstore salary, but was manageable now. No, I bought real furniture, not Craigslist couches with mystery stains. I got a gym membership at the YMCA on Meeting Street. I started going to therapy, $40 a session with my insurance, and talked to someone about what it feels like to love people who don't love you back the same way. My therapist, Dr. Marcus Williams, was a black man in his 50s who'd grown up in Charleston, on the peninsula before gentrification pushed families like his out to North Charleston. He listened to me talk about my parents for 3 sessions before he said, "Claire, you're waiting for them to apologize. What if they never do? What if you build a life anyway?" I built a life anyway. I made friends at Google, people who invited me to happy hours at the rooftop on Vondu Range, who wanted to hear about my projects. Who didn't make me feel like an afterthought. I started running along the Battery in the mornings, past the Rainbow Row houses in their famous pastels, past White Point Garden where tourists take engagement photos. I lost 15 pounds without trying. I stopped checking my parents' Facebook pages to see what I was missing. My mother called 17 times in those 6 months. My father called 9 times. Emily texted occasionally, mostly asking if I was mad, if I was coming to Thanksgiving, if I'd seen the photos from her promotion party. I didn't respond. I didn't block them. I just let their messages pile up like unpaid bills I had no intention of settling. In July, my team launched a major update to our infrastructure that reduced processing time by 34% across the Southeast region. In August, Priya nominated me for a spot bonus, talk which came with a $5,000 check and a handwritten note from the regional director. In September, I got invited to speak on a panel at a Charleston Tech Summit about women in computer science. I stood on a stage at the Charleston Marriott and talked to 200 people about code, about persistence, about building things that last. My parents weren't there. I didn't expect them to be. In October, Google announced they were expanding the Charleston office and opening new positions. Tech journalists wrote articles about it. Charleston's growing tech scene. Companies choosing Charleston over Silicon Valley. The local news did a segment. I didn't make it into the story, but the building did, and I watched my coworkers get interviewed about why they loved working here. One of them, David Chen, said, "Charleston is becoming a real tech hub. We're not just tourists and history anymore. We're building the future." It was November 8th, 2024, exactly 6 months after graduation, when I sent them the photo. I didn't plan it. I didn't rehearse what it would feel like, or game out their reaction. I was at work, standing in the courtyard outside the Google Charleston office with my team. We'd just finished a successful product launch, and Priya wanted a group photo for the internal newsletter. The November sun was perfect, warm but not brutal. The kind of day that makes you remember why people move to Charleston. Behind us, you could see the Google logo on the building, clean and bright against the sky. Someone took the photo with my phone. I looked at it afterward, this picture of me in business casual clothes, smiling genuinely, not standing in front of one of the most recognizable company logos in the world. I looked happy, I looked successful. I looked like someone who'd made it without needing her parents to validate the achievement. I sent it to my mother's phone at 4:37 p.m. No message, no explanation, just the photo. She called 47 times in the next hour. I know the exact number because I watched my phone light up, over and over, her name flashing on the screen like an alarm I refused to turn off. My father called 23 times. Emily called 11 times. Text messages came in waves. "Claire, please call me. Where are you? Is that Google? Please talk to me. I'm so sorry. We need to talk." I didn't answer. I sat in my apartment on Huger Street, watching my phone light up, and felt something I'd never felt before when it came to my parents. Power. And not the mean kind, not the kind that comes from revenge. Just the simple power of not needing them to understand me before I understood myself. At 6:14 p.m., my mother showed up at my apartment building. I saw her through the window, standing on the sidewalk, looking up at the building like she wasn't sure which unit was mine. She was wearing the same outfit she'd worn to Fleet Landing in the Facebook photos, a pale blue blouse and white pants, like she'd driven straight from Mount Pleasant without thinking to change. She stood there for 11 minutes before she rang the buzzer. I didn't answer it. She rang again. Then she called my phone. Then she started crying on the sidewalk, and I watched from my window, 3 floors up, feeling something crack open in my chest. Not sympathy, not forgiveness. Just the recognition that she was finally feeling a fraction of what I'd felt standing in that bathroom at my graduation, listening to her laugh about me not finishing. She left at 6:32. I watched her walk back to her car, a silver Lexus RX 35. Oh, that my father had bought her for Christmas 3 years ago, and drive away. My phone kept ringing, text messages kept coming. Please, Claire. We made a mistake. Let us explain. We're so proud of you. I turned off my phone and went for a run along the Battery. The harbor was calm, the boats rocking gently in their slips, and I thought about Dr. Williams asking me what I would do if they never apologized. They were apologizing now, frantically, desperately, but apologies that only come when someone realizes what they've lost aren't really apologies. They're just fear dressed up as remorse. I turned my phone back on at 9 p.m. There were 73 missed calls total. I scrolled through the text messages. My mother's were long, rambling, full of excuses about how they'd thought I understood, how they didn't mean to hurt me, how they'd always known I was smart, but didn't realize I'd do this well. My father's were shorter, more direct. We were wrong. Please call. Emily's message was different. I didn't know they weren't going to your graduation until after it happened. I would have told them not to do the party that day if I'd known. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix it, but I'm sorry. I believed her. Emily had always been the favored one, but she'd never been cruel about it. She'd just accepted it as natural, the way you accept being taller or having better eyesight. Well, she'd never had to question whether she was loved because the answer was always obvious. But she hadn't asked for Fleet Landing. She hadn't known. I texted her back at 9:47 p.m. I know. Thank you. Then I texted my mother. I'll meet you for coffee. Saturday at 10 a.m. Cannonboro Collective on Spring Street. Just you. She responded in 14 seconds. I'll be there. Saturday, November 11th, 2024. I got to Cannonboro Collective at 9:52 a.m. It's a coffee shop in an old house on Spring Street, the kind of place that serves pour-over coffee in ceramic mugs and has mismatched furniture that somehow looks intentional. I ordered a latte and sat at a table by the window. My mother arrived at 9:58, 2 minutes early, wearing a navy dress and pearl earrings like she was going to church. She saw me, and her face did something complicated. A relief and fear and hope all at once. She walked over and stood there, not sitting down, waiting for permission. "Can I sit?" she asked. "That's why we're here," I said. She sat. She folded her hands on the table. She looked at me like she was trying to memorize something she'd never bothered to learn. "Claire," she started. "Let me talk first," I said. "You're going to listen, and then you can say whatever you need to say. But I'm going first." She nodded. I graduated summa cum laude from the College of Charleston with a degree in computer science. I did it on a full academic scholarship while working 20 hours a week at the campus bookstore. I paid for my own apartment, my own food, my own everything. I applied to tech companies and got offers from 3 of the biggest in the world. I accepted a position at Google making $127,000 a year, more than Dad makes in commercial real estate. I did all of this without your support, without your encouragement, without you even pretending to care. My mother's eyes were wet. We did care. You didn't show up to my graduation. You threw a $1,800 party for Emily's assistant manager position at a car dealership on the same day I was graduating with honors from a 4-year degree. When I called you from the bathroom, you laughed and said I'd never finish. Those are facts. You don't get to rewrite them now that you've realized I'm successful. I didn't mean it like that, she said, her voice breaking. It doesn't matter how you meant it. That's what you said. That's what you did. For my entire life. You've treated Emily like she's the only daughter worth celebrating and treated me like I'm the backup option. You sent her to Porter God and me to public school. You threw her a graduation party with 67 people and took me to California dreaming. You called her social, and me quiet, like being smart was somehow less valuable than being charming. You were always so independent, my mother said. You never seemed to need us. I was a child. Children aren't supposed to have to beg their parents to care about them. I shouldn't have had to perform neediness to earn your attention. She was crying now, actual tears running down her face, mascara starting to smudge. What can I do? How do I fix this? You can't fix it, I said. You can't go back to my science fair and show up. You can't go back to my graduation and be there. You can't undo 24 years of making me feel like I didn't matter, but you can stop trying to be part of my success now that I have it. What does that mean? She asked. It means I don't need you to be proud of me anymore. I'm proud of myself. It means you don't get to tell your friends at the junior league about your daughter who works at Google like you had anything to do with it. It means if you want to be part of my life going forward, you're going to have to earn it, the same way I've had to earn everything else. My mother reached across the table like she was going to take my hand. I pulled back. I love you, she said. I know you do, but love without respect isn't enough. You loved me while dismissing me. You loved me while forgetting about me. That kind of love doesn't cost you anything. And I'm done accepting it. We sat there in silence for a while. The coffee shop was filling up with people, the Saturday morning crowd ordering lattes and pastries. A couple at the next table was laughing about something on their phone. Outside, someone walked past with a golden retriever. Life was continuing around us while my mother tried to figure out what to say to a daughter she'd never learned how to value. Can I see you again? She finally asked. Can we try to build something different? Maybe, I said, but it's going to be on my terms. No surprise visits, no calling 47 times when I don't answer, no posting about me on Facebook or telling people about my job like you're taking credit. If you want to know how I'm doing, you ask me directly, and if I don't want to answer, you respect that. Okay, she said. Okay, I can do that. And you owe Emily an apology too. She looked confused. Emily? You turned her into the golden child and me into the disappointment. That's not fair to either of us. She didn't ask to be the favorite, and I didn't ask to be forgotten. You set us up to compete for scraps of your attention instead of just loving us both for who we are. My mother nodded slowly. You're right. I never thought about it that way. Start thinking about it. I finished my latte and stood up. My mother stood too, uncertain, like she didn't know if we were hugging or shaking hands or just leaving. Thank you for meeting me, I said. Can I hug you? She asked. I let her hug me. It felt strange and formal, like hugging a distant relative you see at weddings. But it was something, a starting point maybe, or an ending that didn't require cruelty. I walked back to my apartment and called Emily. She answered on the first ring. Hey, she said cautiously. Hey, you busy? Not really. Tyler's watching football. What's up? I just had coffee with Mom. I think you and I should talk too. Not about them, about us. I'd like that, Emily said, and she sounded like she meant it. We met for lunch the next day at the Obstinate Daughter on Sullivan's Island, a restaurant right on the beach where you can hear the ocean from your table. We ordered wood-fired pizza and rosé and sat across from each other like adults instead of the roles we'd been playing our whole lives. Emily told me she'd felt like she was living in a glass box, always being watched, always expected to be charming and perfect and exactly what our parents wanted. I told her I'd felt invisible, like nothing I did mattered unless it fit their narrow definition of success. I didn't know they weren't coming to your graduation, she said again. I swear, Claire, I thought they were going to both. If I'd known, I would have canceled the party. I believe you, I said. But here's the thing. You can't cancel it now. It happened. They chose. What matters is what we do next. What do we do next? She asked. We stop letting them define our relationship. We're sisters. We don't have to be competing for their approval. We can just be sisters. She smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd seen from her in years. Not the performative one she used in photos, but something genuine. I'd really like that. We're working on it. Emily and I see each other every couple of weeks now, sometimes for lunch. Sometimes for a walk on the beach, sometimes just to text about something dumb we saw online. It's not perfect. We're still learning how to be in each other's lives without the weight of our parents' expectations. But it's real. My parents and I are in what Dr. Williams calls a reconstruction phase. They text me once a week, usually on Sundays, asking how I'm doing. Sometimes I respond. Sometimes I don't. We had dinner at their house in Mount Pleasant once, in December, and it was awkward but not terrible. My mother asked about my work, actually asked, and listened to my answers instead of interrupting. My father looked at me differently, like he was seeing someone he'd missed for a long time. They're trying. I can see them trying, but I'm not rushing to forgive them just because they feel bad now. The forgiveness isn't something you hand out like participation trophies. It's something you earn, slowly, by showing up consistently and proving that the change is real and not just a performance. In January 2025, I got promoted at Google. Senior software engineer, salary bumped to $152,000. I told my parents in a text message, casual, like it wasn't a big deal. My mother called immediately. Claire, that's incredible. Can we take you to dinner to celebrate? Not yet, I said, but thank you for asking. Whenever you're ready, she said. We'll be here. It's a Tuesday morning in February 2025, and I'm sitting on my balcony on Huger Street with coffee and my laptop. The sun is coming up over Charleston, turning the church steeples gold, and I can hear the bells from St. Michael's starting their morning chime. I have a team meeting at 9 o'clock, a code review at 11 o'clock, and lunch with Emily at 12:30. My calendar is full of things I chose, people I want to see, work I'm proud of. My phone buzzes, a text from my mother. Thinking of you this morning. Hope you have a good day. I text back. You too. It's not everything. It's not the childhood I deserved or the parents I needed. But it's a start. And maybe that's all reconstruction ever is. Taking what broke and building something different. Something that works for who you are now instead of who you were supposed to be. I want to be honest with you. I didn't walk away from this story as a hero. I walked away as someone who finally learned where I end and other people begin. My parents didn't transform overnight. My mother still has moments where I can see her slipping back into old patterns. Not where she mentions Emily's engagement to Tyler like it's a bigger achievement than my promotion. My father still doesn't fully understand what I do for work. Still thinks computer science is just typing on computers. But the rules are in place. Every interaction is on my terms. No surprise visits. No 47 calls in an hour. No posting about me on Facebook without permission. No taking credit for success they didn't build. The first time my mother violated a boundary, I pushed back our next dinner by 3 weeks. She hasn't done it again. I'm not telling you this story, so you'll think I'm strong or brave or better than my parents. I'm telling you because maybe you're standing in a bathroom at your own graduation, listening to someone who should love you, tell you that you don't matter. Maybe you're waiting for people to see you, to celebrate you, to recognize that you're worth showing up for. Maybe you're tired of performing gratitude for scraps. If that's you, I want you to know something. You can build a life anyway. You can succeed without their validation. You can love people who hurt you and still protect yourself from being hurt again. You can set boundaries that feel mean, but are actually just self-respect. You can be the child who didn't get chosen and still choose yourself every single day. Someone is watching. Maybe not your parents. Maybe not the people you wish would see you. But someone is noticing. your work, your persistence, your refusal to shrink yourself to make other people comfortable. That matters more than any celebration they didn't throw, any graduation they didn't attend, any phone call they didn't make. Thank you for staying until the end. I mean that. If this story hit close to home, leave me a comment. Would you have answered your mother's calls, or would you have waited like I did? Would you have met her for coffee, or would you have kept your distance? There's no right answer, just yours. Hit like if you believe you can love your family and still protect your peace. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one, and check the description for other videos I think you'll connect with. Comment where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I read every single one. Take care of yourselves, and take care of the people who take care of you.